Greetings, younglings. Today I will show you how to brew as near perfect cup of tea as you can manage without decades of training. I may not look it, but I am over 200 years old, and I've been the keeper of tea for nearly one standard century. Jumping ahead of myself. You all will do well to listen, as a good cup of tea can just be the thing to mend a relationship or rejuvenate the body. I am Jedi Master Hannah Rose, and as I have already explained, I have been the keeper of the tea at the Jedi Temple of Coruscant for the last 100 years, not 200, 100. In this lecture, I will instruct you on how to identify which type of tea you'd like to use, the process of perfectly brewing a cup of tea, and I will direct you on how to prepare that tea for your enjoyment. Before we begin, we must ask ourselves one question. What is tea? Tea is the result of boiling water poured over the leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant, or a derivative. It's also important to note that many beverages that the uneducated refer to as tea are not actually tea. More on this later. There are over 3,000 types of tea. To save time, we will only cover a few common types. When accounting for what kinds of tea to have, it is important to take into account whether or not that tea is bagged or loose-leafed. The loose-leaf tea will offer more benefits of the tea, such as flavor and any medicinal qualities. Bagged tea is more common and easily explained to beginners, such as yourselves. In general, loose-leaf tea is better if it is available, but I won't be using it for this simple demonstration, as the time limits do not allow me to give it the proper respect it deserves. Many of you have heard of black tea before. There is no universal flavor for black tea, although most are described as having an intense or richly aromatic or malty taste. Black tea is made by quickly and heavily oxygenating its leaves, giving it its color. A common belief is that black tea is the most caffeinated variety, but that is only due to how long it is steeped. The less you steep any tea, the less caffeinated and other medicinal qualities will be released into that beverage. No type has significantly more or less caffeine than any other type of tea. Dark tea describes any tea that goes through a fermentation process after the drying of leaves. It generally smells woodsy and tastes sweet, with light notes of bitterness. It is important not to confuse this type of tea for black tea, despite the similar names. Green tea is the only tea that goes through a firing process as the first step after being plucked from the bush. It generally has an earthy taste, and if steeped too long, can turn bitter. The relatively shorter steeping time is what leads many to believe that green tea has less caffeine in it than others. This type of tea is what we will be preparing for today. Herbal tea is actually not tea. It is an infusion created by pouring boiling water over herbs. Peppermint tea is actually a peppermint infusion into water. Herbal tea also has a longer brewing time, although you may not need to strain it like you do with other teas. However, the longer you leave the herbs in the water, the stronger and more potent the results. Now that we have gone through the more common types of teas and its flavors, let's move on to the actual brewing process. For this demonstration, I chose to make green tea infused with jasmine in a bag form, seen here. That might show up backwards, my apologies, but it says jasmine green tea. Ordinarily, I would use loose leaf, but due to the humble facilities I'm staying at now, it prevents me from performing the appropriate rituals to pay respect to such an illustrious beverage. And so, bagged tea. One very important thing to note is whether it comes from a fancy canister of loose leaf or a box of individualized bags, always read the instructions. For this demonstration, I have pre-read the instructions. The next step is to heat up your cup. This allows the heat of the boiling water to go fully into the tea rather than into the cup, giving the tea more time to fully infuse into the water. For this demonstration, I have preheated a cup. In general, the next step is to boil water in accordance to the instructions. Some tea require a rolling boil, while others require the water to be heated to just the point before boiling. The only way to know what you need is by reading the instructions or by experimenting on your own. For this demonstration, I have pre-boiled the water. And now for the fun part. Pour water over the leaves only once the cup is sufficiently heated and the water is ready to be poured. This may seem silly, but pouring the water too early or too late changes the temperature of the water and can affect the taste of the tea. For this demonstration, I have pre-poured some water. I will now show you what pouring water looks like. And now we steep the tea in accordance to the instructions and to taste. For this demonstration, I have prepared a cup of tea ahead of time so that we do not have to sit for the recommended 3 minutes for this lovely cup of tea. Fixing the tea refers to adding additional contents to the beverage after the tea is strained or fully dissolved. You don't want to add anything while the tea is still brewing, as it may affect the quality and taste. Give yourself a chance to taste the tea without any additives. Tea is more than just hot leaf juice, and we have to treat it as such. Minimalism is a core tenet of the Jedi philosophy. Allow yourself a chance to enjoy the beverage as it is. If you find your tea lacks something, then begin experimenting with additives. But remember, less is more. For this demonstration, I have fixed my own cup of tea to my liking. I will now show you how to fix a tea to your liking. For my liking, I like just 1 spoonful of sugar. And now that that's done, the final test. A taste. I have pre-prepared a cup of tea for this purpose. As I said, this lesson was to make a near perfect cup of tea, and that's what this is, nearly perfect. This is acceptable to be served amongst casual company, but it falls a bit short of my standards to be served in any official ceremony. To conclude, in this short lecture, you've learned about some of the more common types of tea, the general brewing process, and how to fix a tea to one's own taste or the taste of your guest. Don't worry if your first few dozen brews don't turn out right. Remember, I have been practicing this art for longer than most of you have been alive. Practice in all things makes perfect, and if you ever find yourself in doubt, remember, read the instructions. This is where we must part ways for now. Thank you for listening to my lecture. I hope that it serves you well on your travels. Goodbye, and as always, may the Force be with you.